A few weeks back, my friend Adam told me to ask our mutual friend Trey to tell me about his friend Larry. Trey, however, said, I'll do you one better. I'm going to go visit him at his house in Tupelo in a couple of weeks. Are you in? And I said, sure. And that's how I ended up traveling with a bunch of roughnecks and sleeping in a bed next to signed pictures of the British royal family. There is no way to properly explain Larry's house. My friends I traveled with, affectionately known as the Sunshine Boys, decided it was in my best interest and theirs to not really tell me anything that I could expect to see at Larry's house. Simply that it is a self-made museum. You see, Larry is a collector. He's in his 70s now, having spent most of his life collecting. He's not a hoarder, let me go ahead and make that clear, though you might think he is a hoarder considering the interior of his house is full, wall to wall, of items on display. But hoarders collect with reckless abandon, and that's not what Larry does. Every item on display has meaning, it has value, it has a story that he will tell you about, or it's in working order. Take, for example, this Xeno chewing gum vending machine from over 100 years ago. You take a penny from his tray of old wheat pennies that sits next to the machine, you place it in the slot, and it automatically does what it was built to do over a century ago in another era. It still works. Just like this ballroom RCA Victrola record player that also sits across the room.
It may just take a little while to get...
There you go. This is the only type of music you should listen to.
Yeah.
1902?
Well, the record is 1930s. God and Barlow was like 30s, 40s.
But the machine was
1910.
Or, even more fascinating to me, this fully functioning Edison cylinder player, the predecessor to our modern vinyl discs, which is one of the earliest forms of recording and playback. And for a music nerd like myself, this is pretty stinking cool.
And we won't come back till it's over there, over there, over there. Bring the word over there.
Wherever you look in Larry's house, you're going to find an autograph. Whether it's an autographed 8x10 of an actor or actress, whether it's a signed letter from a notable figure, whatever it is, you're going to find autographs because Larry has spent a lot of his life trying to collect personal items and signatures from some of the most notable people to have ever walked the face of the earth. It'll take more than one weekend trip to Larry's house to soak in everything that is there, because it's impossible for me to really tell you the sheer quantity of names that hang on Larry's wall. He didn't even have room on his wall to hang a signed 8x10 of Frank Sinatra, so it's set on the floor leaning against the wall until he could find a space to display it. That's Frank Sinatra, sitting on his floor. What stood out to me most, however, are the pieces that he is quick to tell you matter the most to him. That evening, we sat in the 60s room, his favorite room in his house, a room with walls lined with every notable autograph that you could have wanted from the 1960s, from the Beatles to the Stones to Jimi Hendrix. But as we sat there that night, Trey asked him what his favorite piece was in that room, and he didn't point to any of those famous names and those famous signatures. Rather, he pointed across the room to an old record player that has nothing notable about it. It has no historical significance. He didn't even have a record playing on it. We were listening to music through a Bluetooth speaker. But he told us it was his favorite item in the room because it was the same model of record player that his parents got for him when he was young, and it's what he grew up listening to records on. You see, while Larry's house may be lined with the names and signatures of some of the most famous and significant people to have ever walked this earth, there's much more going on. Included among all of these famous names and faces, mixed in between all of these framed portraits hanging on the wall, are the names and faces of his family tree. He hangs news articles about his father. He has pictures of his grandparents and great-grandparents, all mixed in with letters signed by past US presidents. In the midst of telling us about some artifact he has hanging on the walls, he takes a moment to also tell us about his grandfather who helped develop most of the city of Tupelo, which he calls home, or how the city of Atlanta, Georgia has areas and streets named after members of his family. Because while he has this vast and incredible historical record of autographs and memorabilia, letters signed by Napoleon, Abraham Lincoln, Wilt Chamberlain, Babe Ruth, and Lou Gehrig, what matters most to him is not so much the history, but understanding where his family fits in with that history. You could look at this quirky old man's house and say that maybe he lives in the past, and yeah, there are times in which he is living in the past. He's going to try to tell you that music and movies just aren't as good nowadays compared to the music and movies made 60 years ago, and I'm always going to disagree with him on that. But the fact of the matter is, he doesn't live in the past, he lives with an appreciation for it, and with an appreciation of how the past led up to his very existence. I'm not entirely sure that we all fully understand how rare it actually is to be able to walk the earth. Somehow, someway, our ancestors all had to survive long enough to build this chain of their descendants, this family tree, this family line that eventually led to us. That's hard to fathom. Thousands of years of human history, and we are somehow the current product of it. It's hard to fathom, especially in a day and age where, quite honestly, the past is divisive. Understandably so. But there are some who say that we should worship the past, and there are others who say we should erase the past. And neither of them really seem to know how to handle the past correctly. I've come to believe that maybe the best course is to appreciate the past, the highs, the good moments, and the horrendous low moments. You have to appreciate all of it so that you can make peace with the present and build for the future. If you ignore anything just because it's a little too good to be true, or if it was a horrible moment in human history, you lose perspective, and I think it's important to keep all of it in our line of sight. I think we focus too often on the future, and we all need a reminder from time to time that it's not a bad idea to look back, to visit the days long past, and to appreciate where we've come from and how we fit right now.
We'll do it like just boring enough to where people lose interest and then we'll do something crazy.